Miller's 2019 convictions for being an accessory to the murder of Douglas Chambers, citing a critical error during jury selection.
It orders that Miller get a new trial within 6 months of the conclusion of his current gang case.
Government and opposition senators clash in the Senate over the budget and the direction of the country following Hurricane Melissa.
Will make sure that there is a substantial fillip to the economic growth.
Even at their best, they on that side lack a clear and credible vision.
Finance Ministry inks $70 million contract with the IDB to support the continued public sector transformation program.
Education Ministry trying to locate over 300 students who've not attended school since the passage of Hurricane Melissa.
We have pulled in our pastors and other persons who have been working with us to move beyond the school plant into communities.
In news from the rest of the world, Trinidad and Tobago says it wasn't consulted on the reappointment of CARICOM Secretary General.
Iran says it will expedite humanitarian aid through Strait of Hormuz.
In sports, JC widens boys' lead while Edwin Allen continues to be in charge of the girls on day 5 of Champs 2026.
And later in our broadcast, in our cover story at 5:35, Executive Director of Caribbean Policy Research Institute, Dr. Damian King, says a continued focus on debt reduction will keep the country in a strong position to respond to future disasters. He'll join us.
In the nation's business at 6:25, alleged leader of the Klansman gang, Tesha Miller, has been acquitted of being an accessory before and after murder in relation to the 2008 killing of former JUTC chairman Douglas Chambers. His attorney, Bert Samuels, will join us.
Also in the nation's business, several petroleum dealers are reportedly accusing Total Energies Jamaica Limited of unfair pricing practices by offering preferential fuel rates to select operators, creating an uneven playing field in the market. We'll hear from President of the Jamaica Gasoline Retailers Association, Philip Chong.
Taking you around the world at 6:45, a Spanish woman who endured a long legal battle with her father for the right to end her life died by euthanasia on Thursday. You'll hear more.
And at 7, it's the comments section with Shalois Michael and Mahiri Stewart. This evening, they're asking, how's your school doing at Champs? Give us your comments by logging on to our Facebook page, Nationwide News Network, and by tweeting us at Nationwide Radio, and message us on WhatsApp at 876-285-5693. You can also leave your comments on Instagram at Nationwide 90FM. All these and more as we take you home on air on your mobile, Nationwide 90FM, RevoNews.ai, and on the Revo News app. It's available on Google Play and the App Store. This Friday afternoon, it's Friday, March 27, 2026.
If it's news, it's got to be Nationwide 90 FM.
Now to the details. A critical error during jury selection which rendered the trial a nullity and resulted in a miscarriage of justice. That's the ruling given by the Court of Appeal as it quashed the 2019 convictions of alleged Klansman gang leader Tesha Miller. The appeal court found that Miller had been improperly denied his full entitlement to a peremptory jury challenges. Peremptory challenges are legal rights in jury selection for the attorneys to reject a certain number of potential jurors without stating a reason. The court detailed its decision in an 84-page judgment released on Friday. Robian Williams has been reading the judgment and files this report.
The court determined that, based on the seriousness of the charge of accessory before the fact to murder, Tesha Miller was legally entitled to 4 peremptory challenges. But the trial judge, Justice Georgiana Fraser, limited him to 2, despite attempts by his attorneys to exercise the full number. According to the appellate judges, that error struck at the heart of the fairness of the proceedings, effectively invalidating the entire trial. The panel ruled that this denial alone, among 16 grounds of appeal, was sufficient to overturn the convictions, making it unnecessary to fully consider most of the other arguments raised. Miller had been convicted in 2019 for being an accessory before and after the 2008 murder of former Jamaica Urban Transit Company chairman Douglas Chambers. He was sentenced in 2020 to 38 years and 9 months in prison. In the original trial, a self-confessed member of the Klansman gang testified that Miller, whom he described as the gang's leader, ordered the killing allegedly contracted by a big man. The witness also admitted participating in the attack as part of a distraction team while Andre Blackman Bryan carried out the shooting. Bryan was later acquitted of the murder. In its ruling, the Court of Appeal formally set aside both convictions and the sentences imposed, declaring the 2019-2020 trial in the Home Circuit Court a nullity. But the court drew a distinction between the two offenses. For the charge of accessory after the fact to murder, the judges entered a verdict of acquittal, noting that Miller had already served the full 18-month sentence imposed for that offense. They found that ordering a retrial on that count would not be in the interests of justice. In contrast, the court ordered that Miller be retried for the offense of accessory before the fact to murder. Despite arguments from the defense that a retrial would be oppressive due to the passage of time, potential prejudice, and financial hardship, the judges concluded that the seriousness of the allegation, the strength of the prosecution's case, and the likely availability of key witnesses outweighed these concerns. The court also noted that Miller has served just over 6 years of his sentence for that offense, which it did not consider to be a significant portion in the context of the mandatory penalties. A new trial must begin within 6 months after the conclusion of a separate court matter in which Miller is currently engaged. If the prosecution fails to meet that deadline, the charge is to be stayed unless the delay is attributable to the defense. Miller is currently on trial in the Supreme Court in relation to allegations that he led a faction of the Klansman gang. The panel of judges who presided over the appeal were Justice Jennifer Straw, Justice Nicole Foster Pusey, and Justice David Fraser. Robeanne Williams for Nationwide News.
Meanwhile, the attorney who represented Tesha Miller in the original trial and consulted on his appeal, Bert Samuels, says he feels vindicated following the ruling by the Court of Appeal.
It's been a 2-year and 9 months wait since the Court of Appeal reserved its judgment. We're very happy to know that we got the not guilty verdict, but we are very disappointed that a retrial has been ordered, and we intend to review that matter and may very well go to the Privy Council on that issue.
Samuels points out that during the empaneling of the jurors, he did raise the concern of not being allowed the full entitlement to his peremptory challenges.
Interestingly, if you look at paragraph 43 of the judgment, you will see where the Court of Appeal said that I did point it out to the judge and we had arguments about it, and she stopped me from getting my 4 challenges. So the judge had the benefit of my reasoning before she ruled against me. I feel that it is a very good point that the court has raised. The cartel case has emphasized the need for a jury to be properly empaneled, and therefore it is just a reinforcement of old principles which the judge turned a blind eye to.
The government and opposition sparred in the Senate on Friday over the budget and the direction of the country following the passage of Hurricane Melissa. The two sides gave contrasting opinions on the state of the economy as they debated the appropriations bill. The appropriations bill is a companion piece of legislation in the upper house linked to the estimates of expenditure, which is tabled in the House of Representatives. Siobhan Campbell tells us more.
Government Senator Albin Hill tabled the appropriations bill in the upper house on Friday. In doing so, he reflected on Jamaica's progress under the current Holness administration. According to Senator Hill, Hurricane Melissa derailed the JLP government's unprecedented period of uninterrupted economic growth. But he vowed that the government is already moving to right the ship through the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, NARA.
Prime Minister's establishment of the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, NARA, is to ensure that we spend our capital budgets efficiently, effectively, and speedily. That when this spending gets into the economy, the multiplier effect will make sure that there is a substantial fillip to the economic growth.
Opposition Senator Ramon Small Ferguson tore into the government, saying there was no meaningful growth in the economy long before Hurricane Melissa made landfall.
Speak a little bit about the context in which the budget is being set, and really to dispel the idea that Jamaica was in a state of perfection before the hurricane, which was just reiterated just now. We all know, Mr. President, that Melissa was a significant event, very significant. But it would be incomplete and ultimately misleading, Mr. President, to suggest that the fiscal pressures that we now face began with Hurricane Melissa. The truth is that, despite what the government would like it to believe, in the years leading up to Melissa, Jamaica was already showing signs of underlying fiscal weakness.
And Government Senator Keith Duncan defended the Holness administration's track record in delivering for Jamaicans even through the most difficult times. He says the government will do so again.
But we must make tough fiscal choices, and this government of Jamaica, the Andrew Holness-led administration, will make tough fiscal choices. So let us leverage this opportunity for public-private partnerships. Let's leverage this US $2.4 billion and to be a companion to the $4.3 billion that is funding public infrastructure, $6.7 billion US dollars available to drive growth and development, the resurgence of our Jamaican economy.
However, Opposition Senator Cleveland Tomlinson was not convinced. According to him, based on budget presentations from the government, it's clear they have no vision to improve the lives of Jamaicans.
I then turned my attention to the Prime Minister's contribution, hopeful that he would fill the gap in his bite at the cherry. He did make an attempt to address some of the structural issues, but it was clear, Mr. President, the effort did not go far enough. The response, in my estimation, lacked depth in many areas. So when I consider both presentations in totality, I am left with the unavoidable conclusion, even at their best, they on that side lack a clear and credible vision for Jamaica's transformation.
Siobhan Campbell for Nationwide News.
The Ministry of Finance and the Public Service has signed a new loan contract with the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, valued at $70 million to support the continued public sector transformation program. The loan agreement was signed on February 13. However, the ministry and IDB representatives participated in a visibility ceremony for the loan agreement on Friday. The program will finance reforms aimed at improving the efficiency and effectiveness of the public sector. It's set to be implemented over a 6-year period. According to the Finance Ministry, the initiative will enhance core government operations, including human resources, payroll, procurement, finance, and accounts. It also introduces digital tools such as a public servant registry, single sign-on platform, and enhanced recruitment and performance management systems. The total program cost is $78 million, with the government contributing $8.5 million in counterpart funding.
You're listening to Nationwide News at 5. More news after these.
You're listening to Nationwide 90 FM. The time is
5:14.
Interex Distributors invites you to the ultimate clearance yard sale. All tiles on sale. Deals too good to miss. Save big, shop smart, only at Interex Distributors, 591 Spanish Town Road. Call us at 876-501-2516. Hurry while stocks last. Don't miss your chance to grab unbeatable bargains. The temperature by Interex Distributors is...
Unlock winnings, unlock value, unlock postpaid with Digicel. Sign up for your postpaid plan now, win $1 million. When you sign up and unlock postpaid with Digicel, you can win up to $1 million and more. Just sign up or switch to postpaid, upgrade or activate an add-on in the My Digicel app. Pay your bill in full on time and you can win an iPhone 17 Pro Max every week. A bill write-off up to 10 grand, a grand prize of $1 million. Unlock winnings with Digicel. Better connected.
authorized under Section 58.3 of the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Act. Conditions apply. Promotion valid from February 6 to April 4.
Continuing the news, more Jamaicans in 2023 suggested difficulties in consistently accessing adequate food, with new data showing a notable decline in households reporting they had enough to eat daily. That's according to the Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ's survey of living conditions for 2023. The document, tabled in the House of Representatives earlier this week, shows a 10-point decline in the number of Jamaicans who felt they had enough to eat compared to pre-COVID-19 levels. Mahiri Stewart tells us more.
According to the findings, just 51% of households indicated they had enough food to eat on a daily basis during the 4-week reference period prior to the survey. This represents a significant drop from 62% recorded in 2019. COVID-19 pandemic caused significant economic and social disruption due to lockdowns and other measures aimed at controlling its spread following its outbreak in January 2020. While there's been significant economic recovery since, the data provided by the PIOJ suggests at least up to 2023, Jamaica's food security had not fully recovered. The survey suggests that 33% of households said they had enough food only sometimes, and 15% reported not having sufficient food at all. These are both increases relative to 2019 levels. The figures, however, remain largely unchanged from 2021, suggesting that food security conditions have stabilized but not recovered to pre-COVID-19 standards. Regional differences were also evident. In the Greater Kingston metropolitan area, a higher proportion of households reported having enough food daily compared to other regions. By contrast, 48% of households in other urban centers and 46% in rural areas reported daily food sufficiency. Similarly, income inequality continues to play a major role in food access. Among households in the poorest quintile, only 28% reported having enough food daily, compared to 69% in the wealthiest quintile. The survey also examined household livelihoods, finding that the largest share of households, 46%, depended on employment by others as their main source of income. This was followed by self-employment at 23%, remittances and pensions at 17%, and production of goods or agricultural activity at 11%. Despite these income streams, many households remain financially vulnerable. Approximately 50% said their main source of livelihood only covered basic needs, while 32% described it as a reliable income stream. However, 12% reported that their income was insufficient to meet basic needs, and 5% said it was inconsistent or unreliable. Mahiri Stewart for Nationwide News.
The Ministry of Education is bolstering efforts to locate students who have not been attending school since the passage of Hurricane Melissa last October. Over 300 of the nation's children are unaccounted for in the formal education system. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, Dr. Kassan Troop, says discussions are already underway with several stakeholders to locate these children.
Within our schools, we have guidance counselors, we have deans of disciplines, we have health and family life educators, we have our nurses, and of course, within the regions themselves, our 7 educational regional offices, we have a replica of that, and they serve as education officers in the same disciplines. And we are grateful they have been working together. We have pulled in our pastors in our communities and other persons who have been working, the faith-based organization and community-based organizations who have been working with us to move beyond the school plant into communities. At this point in time, for us to be only having 300 kids that we are not able to account for, it's a massive improvement. When we returned in January, we were over 1,000.
Hurricane Melissa caused widespread destruction across at least 7 parishes. It impacted over 1,000 schools, with about 600 being significantly damaged. The Category 5 system also resulted in more than 90,000 households, the majority of whom resided in St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, and Trelawney, being displaced. Dr. Troop says this displacement is one of the challenges the ministry is facing in finding these absent students.
When we go into the field, the communities don't know the registered names of our students. They know them with their aliases. And that has become a very difficult task for us. But we continue to describe and we continue to talk, and they give us ideas as to where to go. You have to also remember that some of these children, though we are not able to account, we understand from members in the communities that the families have relocated. Persons are elsewhere trying to cope. If a family relocates, chances are that family would have moved to put that child in a school. We have not been able to track those persons in a precise way, and I believe that is how we have been missing the 300 plus children. We do have some more work to do in the ministry to address that.
Dr. Cassandra, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education.
World in a Minute is brought to you by ABC Electrical Sales. We make things as easy as ABC. Hose Assembly and Supply, equipping Jamaica for success.
And Charles O'Connor Consulting Network, COCN, driven by international accounting standards, modern technology and integrity.
The World in a Minute.
Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs in Trinidad and Tobago, Sean Sobers, has doubled down on his position that the country was not consulted on the reappointment of CARICOM Secretary General Dr. Carla Barnett. Sobers rubbished reports circulating on social media which stated otherwise, disclosing that the Twin Island was contacted only after Barnett's reappointment took place. He adds that some would view this as both disrespectful and insulting. On Wednesday, Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar said she did not support Barnett's reappointment. Persad-Bissessar says Trinidad and Tobago would be reducing its financial contribution to the regional body. Trinidad and Tobago contributes the lion's share of 22% to the CARICOM Secretariat's budget annually.
Tehran has agreed to facilitate and expedite humanitarian aid through the Strait of Hormuz. According to Iran's ambassador to the United Nations, the request was made by the UN to let humanitarian aid and agricultural shipments move through the critical waterway. It comes as the Strait of Hormuz continues to endure strikes on its nuclear facilities. The aid plan would be the first breakthrough at the waterway after a month of war. While markets and governments have focused on blocked supplies of oil and natural gas, the restriction of fertilizer threatens farming and food security around the world. The UN has announced a task force to address the ripple effects the Iran war has had on aid delivery.
World in a Minute was brought to you by ABC Electrical Sales. We make things as easy as ABC. Hose Assembly and Supply, equipping Jamaica for success.
And Charles O'Connor Consulting Network, COCN, driven by international accounting standards, modern technology and integrity.
Recapping the top stories making nationwide news at this hour, Court of Appeal quashes Tesha Miller's 2019 convictions for being an accessory to the murder of Douglas Chambers, citing a critical error during jury selection.
Government and opposition senators clash in the Senate over the budget and the direction of the country following Hurricane Melissa.
Finance Ministry inks $70 million contract with the IDB to support the continued public sector transformation program.
Education Ministry trying to locate over 300 students who've not attended school since the passage of Hurricane Melissa.
I'm Roby Ann Williams.
And I'm Mahiri Stewart.
You can find the news on our website at revonews.ai and on the Revo News app. It's available on Google Play and the App Store. News next, the headlines at 6.
Every day, Jamaicans have something to say. In the group chats, on social media, in the streets, there's a place where it all comes together. The comment section. This is not a lecture. This is not a call-in show. This is the hottest topics of the day, filtered through real opinions, real WhatsApp messages, real voice notes, real reactions. You agree, disagree, sound off, text it, voice note it, debate it. Comments section, Monday to Friday from 7 to 7:30 p.m. only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media.
Sports at 5 is brought to you by Total Tools. Total Tools, every tool, every trade.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Sports here on Nationwide 90 FM. I'm Wayne Walker. We start with the news from the Boys and Girls Athletics Championships. At the National Stadium JC, they've opened a 53-point lead over the defending champions Kingston College on day 4 of the Issa Grace Kennedy Boys and Girls Athletics Championships. over at the National Stadium. The Dark Blues entered the day on 127 points. They've now moved on to 147, and this coming after 17 finals. And they're well ahead of the champions, Kingston College, on 94. Calabar, they remain in third position at the minute on 69.5 points. Edwin Allen continue to lead in the girls section. They've got 104.5 points. This also after 17 finals. However, the champions, Heidel, they've moved into second place. Their highest placing since the start of the championship. And they've got, 67 points at the minute. Immaculate Conception High School, they're just behind on 66 points. Jamelia Young out of Clarendon College has so far highlighted the day. She broke the class 2 girls discus record on her way to winning the title. And of course, the outstanding performance today came in as I mentioned, the discus. 48 meters 40 was her distance, and she was so well ahead of the field. In fact, this was her second gold medal of the championship. She retained the shot put title on Wednesday, and the second, of course, Jamaica College also picked up valuable points in the long jump boys class 3. Nathan Hayes won with 6 meters 37. This ahead of Joel Patrickson of Kingston College, who came in at 6 meters 11, and Romario Franklin out of Portland, Titchfield to be exact. He did 5 meters 99. JC also picked up 6 spots in that long jump class 3 boys final. Very, very valuable points. Antoine Miller did 5 meters 64 to take the bronze. Organizers of the Doha Diamond League say the meeting is scheduled to go ahead as planned, but they're also exploring alternative options amid the war in the Middle East. Qatar's capital is due to host the first of this year's 15 Diamond League meetings, and that is scheduled to go off on May 8th. A final decision will be taken just about a month before the start of the competition to see what they decide to go with. The Diamond League says it continues to monitor the situation in Doha, working in close coordination with all concerned, meeting organizers, the Qatar Athletics Federation, the relevant authorities in Qatar, and of course, World Athletics. Several high-profile sporting events have been affected by the crisis in the Middle East after the USA and Israel launched wide-ranging strikes on Iran. In February, Formula One has cancelled the Bahrain and Saudi Arabian Grand Prix event scheduled for April. The finissima between Argentina and Spain as the winners of the World Cup and the European competition was set to take place in Qatar this month. That has also been cancelled. The West Indies were 23 for 1 after some 5 overs, chasing 342 to beat Australia. And the first of their 3-match one-day international series been played out at Warner Park over in St. Kitts. Kiana Joseph was dismissed a short time ago. She went for 12. The captain, Hayley Matthews, she's on 6, and she's joined by her predecessor, Stephanie Taylor, on 4. Earlier, the Aussies elected to bat, and they posted 341 all out in 49 overs and 5 balls. Phoebe Litchfield weighed in with a top score of 77, and she was supported by Nicola Carey, 49, Captain Sophie Milleneux, 47, and the great Elise Perry, 44. Affie Fletcher bagged a 3 for 83, Deandra Dottin 2 for 54, and the aforementioned Taylor, she bagged a 2 for 31. The Aussies won the preceding 3-match T20 International Series. In fact, they swept it. News now on football. Interim coach of Jamaica's national senior men's football team, Ruddy Speed, is allowing himself to almost forward think what it would be like if Jamaica should beat Democratic Republic of the Congo next Tuesday in Mexico and qualify for a second World Cup final. Jamaica set up the winner-take-all showdown at the Akron Stadium next week by seeing off New Caledonia by a 1-0 on Thursday night in Pathway semi-final 1. The goal coming from the Wrexham frontman in the 18th minute. Of course, the Jamaicans winning that by 1-0. Bailey Kadamari was the goal scorer. And Speed says the country has got a rich sporting history that has taken them to dizzy heights. But he believes that Jamaica should do the impossible next Tuesday and qualify for the World Cup in the summer, then it should be at another level.
We have a lot of great sportsmen in athletics, and the people are really happy when they do well. So for football, we have just qualified for the under 17 World Cup. People are happy, but this is the big one. This is the one that they'll keep parties and they'll probably give us a national holiday if we qualify for it. So this is really the big one. In addition, the cup is in the United States, and we'll probably have the same amount of people that live in Jamaica. Jamaicans that live in the United States again. So it's gonna be a big party for us.
I apologize for the noise that's overpowering that clip. Of course, you appreciate that the interview was done immediately following the game last night in the mix zone, and there may have been a lot of noise in there. All right, so let's close sports now with some news on golf. Golf superstar Tiger Woods was arrested and charged with driving under the influence after a car crash Friday afternoon in Jupiter Island in Florida, USA. Martin County Police say the 50-year-old Woods was traveling at a high rate of speed in a Land Rover and attempted to pass a truck pulling a trailer on a two-lane road when his car swiped the trailer and the vehicle rolled on its side and came to the rest on the driver's side. Woods, they say, crawled out of the vehicle and showed no signs of impairment. There were no drugs or medication in the car, nor was Woods injured. He was alone in the car, says the police, and the DUI investigators were called in to the scene to perform roadside tests on Woods and determined that he was impaired. And of course, he was then placed under arrest, and the breathalyzer test determined that alcohol was not involved. He was then charged with DUI, property damage, and refusal to submit a urine sample. In 2021, the golfer was injured in a rollover crash in Rolling Hills Estates in Southern California. Authorities said he was driving at least twice the speed limit in a 45 miles per hour zone when his Genesis SUV struck a tree, causing the vehicle to fly through the air and land on its side. He went on to make a full recovery from the injuries sustained in that crash. Just to repeat, JC continues to lead. They're 53 points better than the defending champions Kingston College. The first course in the boys segment, and Edwin Island, they continue to set the standards amongst the girls. They're well out front, ahead of the defending champions who are finally in the top three. They're second at the minute, but they're well behind the school from Frankfield in Clarendon. That's sports for now. I'm going to be back at 6:05 with much more.
Sports at 5 was brought to you by Total Tools. Total Tools, every tool, every trade.
For all your custom framing, printing, graphic design, and purchase of art, Make It Frame Art Jamaica Limited, serving you for over 40 years. The time by Frame Art Jamaica is
5:32.
Upgrade your drive with Hyundai and Scotiabank. 4.99% interest, 0 fees, and 1-year insurance free. Choose from the Hyundai Venue, Palisade, Tucson, or Creta. Visit Kingston or Montego Bay showrooms. The temperature by Hyundai is
28 degrees Celsius here in the nation's capital, Kingston. It's 27 in the western city, Montego Bay.
Looking for a partner on your financial journey? Look no further. JPS and Partners Cooperative Credit Union Limited offers attractive loan specials and easy savings plans. Plus, becoming a member is simple. If you're over the age of 16 and want to join a credit union that truly cares about your financial wellness, you may be eligible for membership. Conditions apply. Call or visit us at www.jpscu.com to find out more and start building your future today. JPS and Partners Cooperative Credit Union Limited, your financial partner for life.
This one is very classic, dedicated to all schoolers who are taking it.
If you've ever struggled to pass an exam, then you'll know that students today are under great pressure to get good grades and secure qualification needed to move on to higher education. The problem is that too many students are struggling alone and could really benefit from connecting with hardworking teachers and other bright students in other parts of the country and the region. Join me, Dennis Brooks, this and every Friday evening from 8 to 9, with a repeat on Saturday morning from 8 to 9. For the A-Team, a study group on radio. My team of teachers, students, and experts will break down the syllabus, giving you information, tips, and past paper questions that will help you get top grades in your upcoming exams. Follow us on Facebook Live and on Twitter and be a part of the community. It's the A-Team, Fridays at 8 p.m. with a repeat at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. It's your free extra class on radio and social media. And it's right here on Nationwide 90 FM, the revolution in media.
It's undeniable that we should be together.
The true beauty of music is that it connects people. It carries a message. It speaks to you. It changes you. And that's exactly what we do just for you every Sunday as we take you to Urban Paradise, 9:10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Urban Paradise is our weekly musical journey that will serve up 110 glorious minutes of positive storytelling through music, mixed in with inspirational features to provoke thought and to heal the soul.
Like a dream come true, just wanna be with you.
So join me, Diane Ashton Smith, this and every Sunday, 9:10 a.m. to 11 a.m. here on Nationwide 90 FM, a revolution in media. Urban Paradise, opening our hearts, connecting to others.
Good afternoon, listeners, viewers. Welcome. It is time for the cover story. I'm your host, Siobhan Campbell. And today we are going more into detail into Capri's budget breakdown. Executive Director of the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, Capri, Dr. Damian King, says a continued focus on debt reduction will keep the country in a strong position to respond to future disasters. He says it would be foolhardy to apply the brakes to debt reduction given Jamaica's exposure to potential shocks. He was speaking on Thursday at a Capri event held to break down the budget for the 2026-2027 fiscal year. Hurricane Melissa is the single most economically devastating event to strike Jamaica. Damage is estimated at about 2 trillion Jamaican dollars. Dr. King discussed several things he felt are critical to ensuring Jamaica can remain viable in an environment where crisis is almost always on the horizon. He says despite competing priorities, the country would be wise to pursue a larger catastrophe bond. Dr. King joins us now. Good afternoon, Dr. King.
Good afternoon, Siobhan. Thanks for having me.
So I had the pleasure of listening to your opening of the budget analysis on Thursday, Dr. King, and I noticed top amongst your recommendations was that debt reduction, the continued debt reduction, even past that magical post 60% to debt to GDP ratio target. You advise that we continue to keep it on that path. Please give us a little bit more understanding as to why you said this is important, even when people are suggesting that once we reach 60%, we're in good standing.
Okay, so let me first start by, in answering your question, by correcting a part of your introduction. I did not say it was foolhardy to take the, to move away from debt reduction. The argument for not focusing on further debt reduction is a reasonable argument. It says that if you have a chunk of money, you can apply it to debt reduction, or you can apply it to capital expenditure, which is going to yield a return in terms of economic growth. So you really want to compare the interest you're saving on further debt reduction to the benefit you are getting from capital expenditure that will fuel economic growth. That's a reasonable argument. However, despite it being a reasonable argument, there are good reasons to keep focusing on debt reduction. Melissa, as devastating as it was, we need to stop thinking of Melissa as a one-off, because a small Caribbean island is, from our own experience, we know it is one of the most vulnerable positions for a country to be in the world, by virtue of being small. So anything that affects Jamaica affects the whole economy one time. If a hurricanes don't hit the United States, they hit Florida.
Yes.
Or they hit New Orleans. They don't hit the United States. But in the Caribbean, when the hurricane hits, it's basically the whole country. So that means the impact of tropical storms, the impact of earthquakes is going to be nationwide, even if you don't get the eye. And so they are more impactful. Secondly, because we are small, events in the world economy are going to impact us more greatly. So when oil prices, go up above $100, it affects the whole country in a more significant way than if we had a larger, more diversified economy. And just to hammer home the point that it's not just about Melissa, COVID was just as impactful. So the point we're making is that we live in a vulnerable environment where things are going to hit us hard on a frequent basis. And that means the question of being fiscally resilient, not physically by having stronger bridges and by having better roofs and by having better drainage, but fiscally means in terms of government finances. Because when these events happen, the government is called upon to spend more for recovery and reconstruction at the same time as it has less revenue because a large chunk of the economy is no longer functioning. So it is really important that government put itself in a position where it still has the funds and the resources to be able to support the economy and to support livelihoods and keep it going. And for that reason, it is important to focus on debt reduction. Because when these things happen, the government has to borrow more. If you have really low debt, below 60%, 40% perhaps, 30%, then the capital markets and the lenders are not going to be concerned about giving you additional resources to lending you more because you already have low debt. And so it gives the government more room to be able to borrow cheaply and to support relief and reconstruction and economic activity. So the point is, whereas for a less vulnerable economy, one that is subject to less natural and economic shocks, the widely accepted 60% threshold might be adequate. If you're in a position like Jamaica, where you're highly vulnerable and you're dealing with massive storms and pandemics and global financial crises, you want to have that extra buffer of security of making sure you start off with low debt and a balanced budget.
So would you suggest that there's a sweet spot below 60%, or are you just suggesting that just the debt reduction itself is important?
Well, I would say debt reduction itself is important because, and this is another whole argument, that 60% threshold, which is bandied about, really does not have as firm a basis in terms of economic analysis as one might think. And when you apply it to any particular economy, it's the same way of taking a global average, and a global average is always going to, each particular instance will divert from a global average for anything. So similarly, maybe 60% is a good average, but you have to do a new calculation to say what is really appropriate for every particular economy at its particular stage of development and its particular challenges. So we shouldn't have put that much faith in 60% to begin with.
And further, beyond just Hurricane Melissa, you pointed to our experience with COVID, Hurricane Beryl, essentially that there's always something on the horizon that would potentially rattle the Jamaican economy, and the importance of planning around those events, natural disasters being the most prominent considering our history. And you focus have in place. Instead, you said that we should expand them beyond what they currently are.
So, first of all, let's give kudos to the administration for really the first time in Jamaica's economic history of putting in place what they call the disaster risk framework, which is a sophisticated, tiered series of instruments that give it some fiscal resilience. Insurance policies, catastrophe bonds, catastrophe clauses in existing bonds. All of these are contingency funds. All of these are buffers, insurances, so that when a catastrophe hits, then there are resources it can call upon. So we need to appreciate what was put in place. Having said that, though, when we add up the amount of resources made available without borrowing from this disaster risk framework, it came to less than a quarter of what the government alone needed to deal with the disaster of Melissa. So the point that was made in Capri's published report, now on its website, the report called Budget Breakdown 2026, that you can get at capricaribbean.org, the point is governments traditionally focus on promoting economic growth in their fiscal policies. They focus on equity. Those are appropriate targets of focus. But we think that fiscal resilience should be raised to the same level as those other objectives, that we need a bigger disaster risk framework. We need to have when the next disaster hits, for us to have more resources to be able to devote to it. Because Melissa is not the last one, you know. Climate change tells us that bigger magnitude storms are going to be coming along. And beyond that, it's not just about hurricanes. There'll be another global financial crisis. There'll be another energy shock. There may not be another pandemic, but there will be something novel that's going to come along that we really couldn't have anticipated. So we just need to recognize our vulnerability and be more prepared for it when it happens.
Oh, okay. Please stay with us, Dr. King. We are up on a break.
Gee, you know say Mike no come.
Hold on.
No, sir. That sound like consumption.
What that?
Tuberculosis, aka TB.
Now all time something like that. After nobody not get that again.
So you think TB still about?
If you have a cough for more than 2 weeks with fever, night sweats, and weight loss, go to your doctor or health center and get tested now. Let's be vigilant and stop the spread of TB infections. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
For all your electrical needs, visit ABC Electrical Sales. They stock a wide variety of electrical supplies including plugs, switches, panel boards and conduits, plus energy-saving fixtures. ABC Electrical Sales stocks brands like GE, Siemens, Philips, Cutler Hammer and Allen Bradley. They also offer free island-wide delivery just to suit your needs. Visit them at Shop 8, Hagley Park Plaza, Kingston 10, or call 876-754-3714-5 or 876-754-3825-8. ABC Electrical Sales, for a better choice in the electrical business.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers. We're talking with Dr. Damian King. He's the Executive Director of the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, and they recently tabled their latest budget analysis, that being for the 2026-2027 fiscal year, how we respond to Hurricane Melissa and the lessons learned. Dr. King, you spoke about the disaster risk framework and the need to expand it. During your presentation yesterday, you noted that there are a lot of competing priorities with the government and you have a lot of people pulling in different directions, and the expansion of this disaster risk framework obviously will require additional sums that may take away from other areas of priority. But you provided an understanding as to why this is necessary, that even under any circumstance where you could say, well, this money could be used for growth, when a disaster does hit, we lose that growth anyway and we end up paying for it. Can you give us some details on that?
Thanks. That's a great question. So I would like you to have some sympathy for the finance minister. At present, she's facing calls for additional resources to deal with crime and security. She's facing calls from her health minister for additional resources to deal with public health issues and our public health infrastructure. She's facing calls from pretty much everybody in the country to spend more money on maintaining the roads and fixing the potholes. Never mind capital expenditure to improve the infrastructure. And with all of that, Capri is now coming along and saying it is of the utmost importance that you find additional resources to buy more insurance, to pay investors for a bigger catastrophe bond, to put aside even more money on an annual basis in the contingency fund and the natural disaster reserve. So, how are we going to compete for those resources? Compete for the minister's attention for these additional resources? And the answer to that is that the cost of these disasters, we have to pay them anyway. When Melissa hit, we have to find the resources for the recovery, for the relief, for the reconstruction. So it's an expense we are going to have in any event, because with inevitability, more disasters are going to come along. This is kind of different from insuring your house, which is a good idea. But, you can cross your fingers and hope that a fire does not burn down your house. That's not the case with Jamaica. We are so vulnerable that we know with certainty that another hurricane is going to hit Jamaica. We don't know if it's next year. We don't know if it's in 6 years. We don't know if it's in 10 years. But it's going to happen. So we are going to face that cost no matter what. So the only question is, are we going to wait till it hits and then have to come with a huge tax package and even more borrowing to be able to pay the cost? Or is it more prudent to start putting aside the additional resources now to finance a bigger cat bond, to pay a high insurance premium so we can have more coverage, and so on and so on? So that is the argument. The argument is we're going to pay that cost anyway. Better we start preparing for it from now. So then when it happens, it is less disruptive, it is less costly to the economy, and it allows people to recover more quickly.
But I think the question then comes around, Dr. King, is how do we now still achieve growth or meaningful growth in an economy that is so vulnerable to natural disasters, and when we have to set aside such a largesse to handle those natural disasters? It seems that we're stuck in a bit of a up and down scenario where we try to get the growth, then it's taken away by a crisis, then we try to make up that ground again. How do we escape that trap?
Okay, so it's the same answer, but let me give it to you a different way. As you would know, there are many persons who avoid farming, or certainly avoid farming certain crops because of failure larceny. In other words, if you are taking a risk that 1 in every 3 or 4 of your crops, of your harvest, you're not going to get the benefit of, it don't make sense to go into that business. Even if on any particular harvest, on any particular crop cycle, you're going to make a lot of money. You're going to go into something for which the return is more sure. And this actually applies to preparing for disasters. If you're a businessman or an individual looking for a job, if the environment is too risky, you're not going to make the investment. If when the hurricane comes along, it is going to destroy the business and reduce your income, or destroy your job and reduce your income to zero, even if it would otherwise have a high return, it is not, you can't afford the risk. You can't afford for 2 months for your family not to be able to eat. So you're going to pick an investment or a job which is more secure and more reliable rather than the most productive and highest paying one. So if we don't prepare better to manage these disasters, we end up on a lower growth path anyway, because people are not making the highest return investment. So therefore, to be able to prepare better, to be more resilient and to respond more quickly when the hurricanes come, is a way of promoting growth, is a way of freeing individual decision makers, investors and job seekers to choose options that actually give them the highest return, because there is some protection that the economy is going to recover quickly when the hurricane comes.
Understood. I think this is an issue that is...
I'm glad you understand, because that was my best explanation.
I think it was an excellent explanation. I think this is a tangential issue, Dr. King, but it is related because earlier in the year, the House passed amendments to the FAA Act, rather, that removed the $10 billion cap on the National Natural Disaster Reserve Fund. However, it also put in place a regime where there wasn't a requirement to pay into the fund past that $10 billion cap, or the $10 billion threshold, so to speak, now that it's no longer a cap. Is that the right message being sent in terms of preparing for the next disaster?
Well, it is not unreasonable that it should have a cap. So the question really is that an adequate cap? And given what Capri has estimated is the cost just to the government of Melissa, the cost to the government is the amount they have had to spend for reconstruction, the amount they have had to spend for relief, the amounts that they have had to spend by diverting expenditure from other categories, other investment into Melissa, and most importantly, the loss of tax revenue from the businesses and economic activities that are no longer able to function because of the hurricane destruction. When we add up the total cost of that, and it comes to near $200 billion, then a $10 billion cap doesn't seem adequate. So the question really is not whether there should be a cap or not. Sure, there should be a cap, but perhaps it should be a lot bigger than $10 billion, and they should continue, therefore, to put funds into it beyond $10 billion.
Understood. And then just finally, Dr. King, there is an argument going around. At what point is it more appropriate to expand your borrowing in the face of a natural disaster or raise additional tax measures? Which avenue is more appropriate? At what point do you say, well, we cannot go with any more borrowing, we must get the revenue through other means?
Yeah, that's a great question too, because it is understandable that Jamaicans are concerned about borrowing, given our sordid history with enormous debt and the cost of servicing that debt when it gets higher. I just remind Jamaicans that there was, we got to the point where 40 to 50 cents out of every dollar went to servicing debt, which means not keeping on the street lights, not paying for security, not paying the teachers, not fixing the roads. And we don't want to go near that again. But again, here is the importance of having a foundation of low debt, having a debt to GDP ratio below 60%, because then you can use debt for what it really should be used for. It is better for when the disaster hits that the government does not force Jamaicans to pay for all of it with higher taxation in the year or the year after the hurricane hits, because that leads to too much volatility in people's income.
Yes.
So when the hurricane hits, you have lost some of your income anyway. You have lost some of your livelihood. You are dealing with having to do rebuilding. And then at the same time, the government worsens the problem by taking more taxes out of your economic activity. So you get hit two times. You get hit by the hurricane, and then you get hit by the government. So borrowing in that instance is appropriate, because what the government is doing by increasing taxes a bit and then borrowing is it is allowing us, it is allowing you to pay for the hurricane along a smoother path, to pay for the hurricane over 3, 4, or 5 years instead of in 1 or 2 years. So borrowing is appropriate in those circumstances, and it's a good thing, therefore, that a part of Jamaica's disaster risk framework is pre-approved lines of credit that it can call upon immediately, which it did and is using, because under those circumstances, we want the government to tax us only a little bit each year more, and then to use additional borrowing to be able to spread the cost of it over a number of years.
Understood. That is Dr. Damien King. He's the Executive Director at the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, Capri. As always, Dr. King, illuminating when speaking with you about these matters. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
The headlines are next, listeners. Please stay with us.
The time brought to you by Guardian Life. Live secure, live easy is
6 o'clock.
Nationwide headlines at 6.
Good evening with the headlines at 6. I'm Mahiri Stewart. A critical error during jury selection which rendered the trial a nullity and resulted in a miscarriage of justice. That's the ruling given by the Court of Appeal as it quashed the 2019 convictions of alleged Klansman gang leader Tesha Miller. The appeal court found that Miller had been improperly denied his full entitlement to peremptory jury challenges. Peremptory challenges are legal rights in jury selection for the attorneys to reject a certain number of potential jurors without stating a reason. The court detailed its decision in an 84-page judgment released on Friday. The court determined that based on the seriousness of the charge of accessory before the fact to murder, Tesha Miller was legally entitled to 4 peremptory challenges. But the trial judge, Justice Georgiana Fraser, limited him to 2 despite attempts by his attorneys to exercise the full number. According to the appellate judges, that error struck at the heart of the fairness of the proceedings, effectively invalidating the entire trial. The panel ruled that this denial alone, among 16 grounds of appeal, was sufficient to overturn the convictions, making it unnecessary to fully consider most of the other arguments raised. Meanwhile, the attorney who represented Tesha Miller in the original trial and consulted on his appeal, Bert Samuels, says he feels vindicated.
It's been a 2-year and 9 months wait since the Court of Appeal reserved this judgment. We're very happy to know that we got the not guilty verdict, but we are very disappointed that a retrial has been ordered, and we intend to review that matter and may very well go to the Privy Council on that issue.
Samuels points out that during the empaneling of the jurors, he did raise the concern of not being allowed the full entitlement to his peremptory challenges.
Interestingly, if you look at paragraph 43 of the judgment, you will see where the Court of Appeal said that I did point it out to the judge and we had arguments about it, and she stopped me from getting my 4 challenges. So the judge had the benefit of my reasoning before she ruled against me. I feel that it is a very good point that the court has raised. The cartel case has emphasized the need for a jury to be properly empaneled, and therefore it is just a reinforcement of old principles which the judge turned a blind eye to.
Bert Samuels, attorney. The government and opposition sparred in the Senate on Friday over the budget and the direction of the country following the passage of Hurricane Melissa. The two sides gave contrasting opinions on the state of the economy as they debated the appropriations bill. The appropriations bill is a companion piece of legislation in the upper house linked to the estimates of expenditure, which is tabled in the House of Representatives. According to Government Senator Aubin Hill, Hurricane Melissa derailed the JLP government's unprecedented period of uninterrupted economic growth, but vowed that the government is already moving to right the ship through the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority.
Prime Minister's establishment of the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, NARA, is to ensure that we spend our capital budgets efficiently, effectively, and speedily. That when the spending gets into the economy, the multiplier effect will make sure that there is a substantial fillip to the economic growth.
Aubin Hill government senator. Opposition Senator Ramon Small Ferguson tore into the government, saying there was no meaningful growth in the economy long before Hurricane Melissa made landfall.
Speak a little bit about
the context in which the budget is being set, and really to dispel the idea that Jamaica was in a state of perfection before the hurricane, which was just reiterated just now. We all know, Mr. President, that Melissa was a significant event, very significant. But it would be incomplete and ultimately misleading, Mr. President, to suggest that the fiscal pressures that we now face began with Hurricane Melissa. The truth is that, despite what the government would like it to believe, in the years leading up to Melissa, Jamaica was already showing signs of underlying fiscal weakness.
Ramon Small Ferguson, opposition senator. The Ministry of Education is bolstering efforts to locate students who have not been attending school since the passage of Hurricane Melissa last October. Over 300 of the nation's children are unaccounted for in the formal education system. Permanent Secretary in the ministry, Dr. Kassan Troop, says discussions are already underway with several stakeholders to locate these children.
Within our schools, we have guidance counselors, we have deans of disciplines, we have health and family life educators, we have our nurses, and of course within the regions themselves, our 7 educational regional offices, we have a replica of that, and they serve as education officers in the same disciplines. And we are grateful they have been working together. We have pulled in our pastors in our communities and other persons who have been working, the faith-based organization and community-based organizations who have been working with us to move beyond the school plant into communities. At this point in time, for us to be only having 300 kids that we are not able to account for, it's a massive improvement. When we returned in January, we were over 1,000.
Dr. Kassan Troop, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education. A teenage boy has been charged with wounding with intent after hitting a schoolmate in the head with a metal chair. The incident took place at a high school in Alexandria, St. Anne last Wednesday, March 18. It's reported that about 2:15 p.m. the accused entered a classroom selling sweets. However, the other student did not make a purchase. A friend of the accused then approached the student, leading to an argument. A fight broke out during which the accused threw a metal chair, hitting the student on the head and causing a wound. The injured student was taken to hospital where he was admitted and later discharged. The teenage boy was later arrested and formally charged. This is the second reported incident in March in which a student of a St. Anne-based high school was hit in the head with a metal chair. In the first incident, 16-year-old Devoni Sher of Ocherius High School died in similar circumstances. A grade 10 student has been charged with his murder. Those are the headlines at 6. I'm Mahiri Stewart. Sports is next.
Enjoy peace of mind knowing that your hard-earned money is protected by the JDIC. That's right, the JDIC through the Deposit Insurance Scheme guarantees up to $1.2 million of your deposits in commercial banks, merchant banks, and building societies. This means your deposits, such as your savings and checking accounts, are covered. Rest easy, knowing that your deposits are secure. Your deposits always protected. For more information, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at JDICJAM, or visit our website at www.jdic.org.
JDIC, protecting deposits for you and me.
Every day, Jamaicans have something to say. In the group chats, on social media, in the streets, there's a place where it all comes together. The comment section. This is not a lecture. This is not a call-in show. This is the hottest topics of the day, filtered through real opinions, real WhatsApp messages, real voice notes, real reactions. You agree, disagree, sound off, text it, voice note it, debate it. Comments section, Monday to Friday from 7 to 7:30 p.m. only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to Sports here on Nationwide 90 FM. I'm Wayne Walker. A 16-year-old girl out of Clarendon College, Jamelia Young, has so far highlighted the penultimate day of the 2026 Issa Grace Kennedy Boys and Girls Athletics Championships at the National Stadium. She broke the Class 2 record in the girls' discus on her way to winning gold medal. In fact, it was her second gold of the campaign, and her name is Jamelia Young. Her second gold of the campaign. 2 nights ago, she retained the shot put title and is in the runnings for the Class 2 champions girl at the championship. JC, in the meantime, picked up valuable points in the Class 3 long jump final. Nathan Hares won with 6 meters 37, and Joel Patrickson of Kingston College was second, 6 meters 11, and the third went to Titchfield's Romario Franklin with 5 meters 99. And the Jamaica College, they're still showing the way in the boys section. In fact, they're 53 points better than the defending champions Kingston College at the moment. 17 finals scored already. 19 finals have already been completed, but only 17 scored at the minute. So the table will change in maybe a minute or so. And on the girls' side, it is still Edwin Allen High School. They're looking for their 12th title. They've got 104.5 points, and they're well on their way. Tomorrow should be a very interesting day. The champions for the first time are showing in the top 3. Heidel, they've got 67 points, not far from the third place. Immaculate Conception High School are having a monster champ so far. They've got 66 points and consistently in the top 3 since the start of the championship on Tuesday. Now, the Doha Diamond League is going to go ahead as scheduled according to the organizers, even though they have explained that they'll be exploring alternative options amid the war in the Middle East. And the Qatar capital is set to host the first of the 15 Diamond League meetings this season on May 8th. The final decision on whether the meet will be in Qatar or not will be taken a month before, just about a month before the start of the event, according to the Diamond League people, who said they've been talking to the main stakeholders, World Athletics, amongst them the Qatar Athletics Federation and the relevant authorities in Qatar, who, of course, who are responsible for putting on the meet. A number of high-profile events have had to move away from the Middle East since the start of the war. Formula One, they've moved their Bahrain and Saudi Arabian Grand Prix scheduled for April. And of course, there was a tennis tournament that was supposed to take place there as well. And the Finalissima between Argentina and Spain, the world champions and the European champions, just scheduled to take place in Qatar this month, was also cancelled. The West Indies and Australian women are playing at the minute. The West Indies, they were 47-1 after 7 overs at sports time, and they're chasing 342 to beat the Australians in the first of their 3-match one-day international series being played out at Warner Park over in St. Kitts. And the Aussies put up 341 all out with just the balls to spare when they batted. Phoebe Litchfield weighed in with a top score of 77. She got good support from captain Sophie Milano, who made 49, while it was Nicola Carey who made 49, and Milano made 47. Elise Perry, one of the greats of the women's game, she made 44. Affie Fletcher, a little expensive, though she got 3 wickets, 3 for 83. There was also Deandra Dottin weighing with 2 for 54, and the former captain Stephanie Taylor bagged the 2 for 31. Australia swept the preceding T20 international series 3-0 over the West Indian women. Defending champions Fraser's Whip and Arnott Gardens will be looking to remain perfect after 4 rounds of matches in the Jamaica Women's Premier League. Now, Fraser's Whip, who leads Zone B with a maximum 9 points, will face Mile Gully, and that will be the first game of a doubleheader down at the Tony Sports Complex. That game is set to get off at 3 o'clock. Arnott Gardens will be in the feature game, and that will be against Cavalier. That comes up at 6 o'clock. In other games on Saturday, UWI will host Proven Girls over at Mona Bowl. Real Mona is away to Wi-Fi United at Carter Park in Portland. Real Mobe will welcome the visit of Los Perfectos at Jarrett Park, and Springer United will oppose Federal United. That game to be played at Irwin High School in Montego Bay. All those games are set to kick off at 3:30. Now, interim coach of the Jamaica national senior football team, Rodolphe Speed, is allowing himself to forward think about what would be the situation if Jamaica should beat Democratic Republic of Congo next Tuesday in Mexico and book themselves a second ever spot at the FIFA World Cup. The Jamaicans set up the winner-take-all clash against the Africans for next Tuesday after seeing off New Caledonia by a 0-0 on Thursday night in the Akram Stadium in Guadalajara. A goal on minute number 18 by Bailey Gadamatari gave the Jamaicans the victory. And Speed says Jamaica, they've got a rich history in sports and many big sporting personalities who have taken the country to dizzy heights. But he just thinks that next week Tuesday, if the Jamaicans should get the job done, it could be at a different level.
We have a lot of great sportsmen in athletics, and the people are really happy when they do well. So for football, we have just qualified for the under 17 World Cup. People are happy, but this is the big one. This is the one that they'll keep parties and they'll probably give us a national holiday if we qualify for it. So this is really the big one. In addition, the cup is in the United States, and we'll probably have the same amount of people that live in Jamaica. Jamaicans that live in the United States again. So it's going to be a big party for us.
Yeah, and the Jamaican players were given the day off today. They did mostly recovery work, and of course they were assessed by the medical team. The Jamaicans will be back in training on Saturday. And the Democratic Republic of Congo were not idle. They arranged an international friendly against Bermuda the day before Jamaica played New Caledonia, and the DRC won that game by 2-0. Argentine great Leo Messi has had a stand named after him by his current club in the USA, Inter Miami. The 30-year-old, widely regarded as one of, if not the greatest football player ever, signed for the MLS side in 2023 after a trophy-laden career in Europe with Barcelona and Paris Saint-Germain. He's gone on to become the record goal scorer with 82 goals, and of course he also provided 53 assists for the club based in Florida, and they've given the unusual step of honoring an active player in this fashion at their 26,700 capacity seated stadium over there in Florida. And Messi has really won a number of awards. It's the second time in recent history the Argentine who captained his country to World Cup glory in 2022 in Qatar has had a stand named after him. And Newell's Old Boys in Argentina, where he played as a child, did the same for him in 2025. Last season, Messi became the first player in MLS history to win back-to-back MVP awards. Former Liverpool defender Stephen Warnock says when the Egyptian Mohamed Salah leaves the club at the end of the season, he will do so as an absolute legend despite a sort of dip in form in recent months. Salah earlier this week announced that he'll be leaving the club, the club he joined in 2017. He came over from the Italian Serie A giants AS Roma.
I think overall, he just thinks the time to leave might just be the right time now. Well, his legacy is that he came to the football club and created an incredible legacy for himself and the football team that he played for at that time. Over a 9-year period, he's won a couple of Premier Leagues, Champions League, Super Cup. He's pretty much won everything there is to win. And the goals that he scored, absolutely phenomenal. He's been the standard bearer for Liverpool since he joined the football club, and that's testament to him.
And Salah is third on the all-time goal scorers list for Liverpool with 255 goals. Roger Hunt, the great, he's got 285. And the very, very untouchable Ian Rush has got 346. Those are the top three scorers. And according to Warnock, Salah is a true professional, and the Reds will need to find a player of his caliber if they're to challenge for more silverware.
I think he's a credit to Liverpool Football Club and to himself in the way that he carries the shirt. But yeah, I think it's going to be a sad occasion for Liverpool fans who adore him, because with him in the team, he's brought so many great memories. And you look at the way that Liverpool have dipped this year. Without his goals, he's not probably been in the greatest of form. I'm sure he'd admit that himself. Without his goals, Liverpool struggle, and they're going to have to find someone to try and hit those numbers or in and around those numbers to get them back to competing for a Premier League title.
Mr. Dependable Stephen Warnock. And finally, in sports at this time, the golf superstar Tiger Woods was arrested and charged with driving under the influence after a car crash on Friday in Jupiter Island in Florida. Martin County Police say the 50-year-old Woods was traveling at a high rate of speed in a Land Rover and attempted to pass a truck pulling a trailer on a 2-lane road when his car swiped the trailer, and the vehicle rolled on its side and came rest on the driver's side. Woods, the police say, crawled out of the vehicle and showed no signs of impairment. Yeah, there were no drugs or medication in the car, nor was Woods injured. He was alone in the car, says the police report. DUI investigators were called in to perform roadside tests on Woods and determined that he was impaired. He was then placed under arrest, and the breathalyzer test determined that alcohol was not involved. He was then charged with DUI, property damage, and refusal to submit a urine test. In 2021, the golfer was injured in a rollover crash in Rolling Hills in Southern California. Authorities said he was driving at least twice the speed limit in a 45 miles per hour zone when his Genesis SUV struck a tree, causing the vehicle to fly through the air and land on its side. He went on to make a full recovery from the injuries received in that crash. And that will do it for sports. Have a good weekend, folks.
You could win a return on your taxes. Pay your taxes with your Sagicor Bank Business Credit Card at Tax Administration Jamaica or online for your chance to be one of 2 lucky winners of $500,000 cashback. Earn an entry for every $100,000 spent on taxes between February 27 and April 15. Plus, enjoy a 1-month payment holiday up to 55 days interest-free and unlimited reward points. Visit Sagicor.com to learn more. Conditions apply. Authorized under Section 58.3 of the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Act.
Enough power tool, big to small. Jack on my figure, dig the wall. Upper total tools. Weed whacker figure, trim the lawn. We have everything a job demand. Total tools. We rent them, sell them, and fix them. Also give Total Tools a call. When I say home improvement, landscape construction, a Total Tools are your option. Home improvement, landscape construction, Total Tools are your option.
Total Tools, located at 102 Main Street, Ocho Rios, 34 Slipe Road, Kingston.
And lot C6 Dragstore, Sentence Bay. Call us today.
Boy, I'm glad we get away to the beach for Easter.
I'm glad you bring the Maxfield Easter bun.
One thing connect them all.
Maxfield for maximum satisfaction.
Order by WhatsApp at 455-0144.
Every day, Jamaicans have something to say. In the group chats, on social media, in the streets, there's a place where it all comes together. The comment section. This is not a lecture. This is not a call-in show. This is the hottest topics of the day, filtered through real opinions, real WhatsApp messages, real voice notes, real reactions. You agree, disagree, sound off, text it, voice note it, debate it. Comments section, Monday to Friday from 7 to 7:30 p.m. only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media.
Exciting news! The design studio on Nationwide 90 FM just got a whole lot bigger. Join us this and every Saturday now from 1 to 3 p.m. for an exclusive show that elevates your home, mind, and soul. Discover the latest interior design trends to create your dream sanctuary. Unlock your true potential with personal growth strategies. Nourish your body and spirit with expert wellness tips. Don't miss out on the inspiration you need to live your best life. Tune in to the design studio this and every Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. and take the first step towards a more fulfilling you.
Make me sweat, make me harder. Come into the parlor, there's a welcome there for you.
Welcome to the Mayor's Parlor with Desmond McKenzie.
From 1 to 6 p.m. every Sunday, you'll now get more of your favorite vintage music.
Put your head on my shoulder.
Nationwide 90 FM will transform your Sunday into a musical time machine that will take you way back.
Come with me. Let's go back in time.
This magic moment.
Journey into yesteryear with Desmond McKenzie in the Mayor's Parlor.
I've got the music to jog your memory and make you smile.
Put your sweet lips a little closer to the phone.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the best in vintage music.
Come into the Mayor's Parlor every Sunday between 1 and 6 p.m. here on Nationwide 90 FM, a revolution in media.
Looking for us on YouTube? Don't worry, we're still here.
You can continue watching our live streams on Nationwide 90 FM Live. That's Nationwide 90 FM in all caps LIVE. We appreciate your patience and continued support during this time. Stay tuned for further updates as we work to restore our regular streaming.
This one is very classic, dedicated to all schoolers who are taking it.
If you've ever struggled to pass an exam, then you'll know that students today are under great pressure to get good grades and secure qualification needed to move on to higher education. The problem is that too many students are struggling alone and could really benefit from connecting with hardworking teachers and other bright students in other parts of the country and the region. Join me, Dennis Brooks, this and every Friday evening from 8 to 9, with a repeat on Saturday morning from 8 to 9. For the A-Team, a study group on radio. My team of teachers, students, and experts will break down the syllabus, giving you information, tips, and past paper questions that will help you get top grades in your upcoming exams. Follow us on Facebook Live and on Twitter and be a part of the community. It's the A-Team. Fridays at 8 p.m. with a repeat at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. It's your free extra class on radio and social media. And it's right here on Nationwide 90 FM, the revolution in media.
Welcome back, listeners, viewers. It's time for the nation's business, and again, I'm your host, Siobhan Campbell, and we turn to some legal matters. The alleged leader of the Klansman gang, Tesha Miller, has been acquitted of being an accessory before and after murder in relation to the 2008 killing of Douglas Chambers. The decision was handed down Friday morning. Chambers was chairman of the Jamaica Urban Transit Company at the time he was killed. Miller was convicted of the crime in 2019 and sentenced to 38 years and 9 months in prison in 2020. In his original trial, a self-confessed member of the Klansman gang testified that Miller was the leader of the gang and that he ordered Andre Blackman Bryan to carry out the killing. The gangster, who was offered a reduced sentence after pleading guilty to a separate offense, told the court that Chambers' murder was contracted by a big man. He said he was in the presence of Miller when the order was given. The gangster also told the court that he actively participated in the hit, working as part of a distraction group while Bryan carried out the murder. Bryan was tried and acquitted of Chambers' murder. In his 2023 appeal, Miller argued that he was not given a fair trial. In its ruling on Friday, the Court of Appeal accepted Miller's argument. The court also ruled that Miller should be retried within 6 months after the conclusion of proceedings in another case in which Miller is involved. Failure to do so by the prosecution should see the charges vacated unless the delay is attributed to the defense. Miller is currently on trial for being the alleged leader of a faction of the Klansman gang. Bryan, who escaped jail time on the Douglas Chambers murder, was eventually convicted of being the leader of another faction of the Spanish Town St. Catherine-based gang. Well, to discuss this further, we are joined by one of Miller's attorneys, Bert Samuels. Good evening, Sir Samuels.
Yeah, sure. Great to be with you, my brother.
It is good to have you on, Sir Samuel. So as I understand it, 16 calls were put forward by the defense to vacate this conviction, but the judge upheld only one. Can you explain what the ruling was specifically?
Well, when you read the judgment, if you look at paragraph 43 of that judgment, the Court of Appeal said that when I sought to challenge the third juror, the judge prevented me from doing that and ruled that I only had 2 challenges. Your listeners should know that the challenge simply means an accused can ask that any person coming to take the oath in his trial as a juror, that he could object to them without giving any reason. And the prosecution has that right to. In serious cases, you have 4 challenges you can make, and the prosecution has 4 too. In less serious cases, you have 2, and the prosecutors have 2. So when I tried to go for number 3, the judge stopped me and saying that I was only entitled to 2 challenges. I told her no, It could not be so because it is a similar punishment for murder that it is for aiding and abetting. And we had a long time. I brought the law to her, I showed it to her. She refused to rule in my favor. And as, life would have it, that's the very ground on which Miller has been freed. And the court said that I had alerted the judge to the correct position.
But Sir Samuels, a lot of laymen listening onto this might ask themselves, if it just came down to you not being allowed to select X juror versus Y juror, how did this impact the merits of the case itself?
Well, the case, it doesn't go to the merits. It has to go that the Constitution and the fairness says a man must be tried by a jury that is properly constituted. And if you don't allow the person to challenge the amount of challenge the law gives them, the jury is not properly constituted. He did not get a proper jury. The trial is a nullity. So it's a non-starter, It is a non-starter.
Understood. And in this case, or in the matter of a retrial, we know that the Klansman gang trial, the more overarching matter, is still within the courts. We don't know when that will be concluded. It could be some time yet. Do you foresee a retrial becoming an actual reality?
No, for two reasons. If I'm the optimist I continue to be, when we go to the Privy Council in this matter, we will be appealing the ruling that there should be a retrial. That is definitely something that will be, once the client, we have not spoken to him as yet, but once he gives the right away, we're taking that ruling for the retrial to the Privy Council. And my optimist I am is that the Privy Council will prevent it, but that's just my opinion.
Understood. That's very, as you said, optimistic. We'll see how that matter goes. But in the case of a retrial, under the circumstances where this was a very public matter, this was ventilated quite a while ago, do you see the prosecution being able to essentially bring this case back in front of a judge and jury and continue to put forward it on its merits?
Well, the first thing is they have one witness. The one witness is a murderer. He was convicted. His sentence was reduced. And it depends on if a jury prepared to listen to a man who confesses that I am a murderer and wants to believe him. That is something open to any jury in Jamaica. But the pre-trial publicity that has been given against Tesha Miller is a huge blockade in this case. And it will be tested again, whether he can get a fair trial. This case is 18 years after the death of this gentleman. And he waited 2 years and 9 months for the Court of Appeal to give his decision. He has been serving 5.5 years in prison now after he's been sentenced. With all that length of time, how can he properly find funds to pay another set of lawyers and put up his defense? I think that the delay point is a huge point. The Privy Council is going to have to rule on whether that delay deprives Miller of a fair trial.
Understood. And then just finally, Sir Samuels, the current trial that is still ongoing, the Klansman gang trial that Miller is a part of, does this ruling have any bearing on that? Is there any takeaway from this current ruling that you could potentially apply to that matter?
No, the good thing about this, and maybe it's not so good, but the good thing about this, that is this trial that he's facing is before a judge. It's not before a jury. It would be awful if we were having a jury saying, oh, he got off this, we're going to make sure he doesn't get off this one. But it's before a judge, and it is really not connected in any way. I just want to say, the press, be careful now. At the moment, Tesha Miller has no conviction as a gang leader, so be careful how you address him, because we have taken an action against another newsroom for saying that he's a gang leader. And in closing, for me, I want to big up John Clark, who single-handedly argued this case. You may see other names on the judgment. It is John Clark's thing. I was the consultant to John Clark in this matter.
Understood. I know that was, I said final, but I still have to put it to you, Bert Samuels, because this is not the first time, and these are my words, I'm going to be very specific about it. These are my words, where we believe someone of potentially alleged ill repute is essentially getting off on a technicality. And I said these are my words specifically. What do you say to the public listening on when these matters come to trial and when they're finally overturned, not on the merits of the case themselves, but what amounts to an error by a judge?
I'm saying that we need to train our judges properly. Some judges need to listen more. If the judge had listened to me, she would have allowed me to do the 4 challenges, and we would not be having this interview.
Understood. That is Bert Samuels. He is one of Tesha Miller's attorneys in the matter before the court. Thank you for joining us as always, Attorney Samuels.
All the best, and I look forward to being interviewed when he's fully acquitted. Take care.
Okay. Have a good evening, sir. We take a short break, listeners, and then we come back with the second half of the nation's business.
Drive the most exciting new vehicles in Jamaica. Schedule your 2024 Ford Ranger pickup or Ford Everest 7-seater SUV test drive now. Call or visit KIG today.
The time by KIG is...
It's 6:34.
The heart of Jamaica moves to a beat. This year, it's the same heartbeat of community, guiding hands with the sound of resilience. To rebuild, that same slice is now wrapped in a different story for a community in need. Tasty cheese, tasty beat of Jamaica.
Buy tasty cheese today in store. Help rebuild Jamaica.
For all your electrical needs, visit ABC Electrical Sales. They stock a wide variety of electrical supplies including plugs, switches, panel boards and conduits, plus energy-saving fixtures. ABC Electrical Sales stocks brands like GE, Siemens, Philips, Cutler Hammer, and Allen Bradley. They also offer free island-wide delivery just to suit your needs. Visit them at Shop 8, Hagley Park Plaza, Kingston 10, or call 876-754-3714-5 or 876-754-3825-8. ABC Electrical Sales, for a better choice in the electrical business.
This is more than a conversation. This is your chance to be heard. On March 31, 2026, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., the People's Agenda, under the theme, How Does the 2026-27 Budget Affect You?, is bringing Jamaica straight into the heart of the 2026-27 budget conversation, breaking down the issues that hit you where it matters most: your pocket, your job, your future. We know you see the rising food prices, the high light bills, the insufficient wages, the taxes. We're cutting through the politics and getting to the real impact on your everyday life. Tune in on Nationwide 90.3, 90.5, 90.7 or 90.9. Stream live on Instagram at Nationwide 90 FM or join the conversation on X at Nationwide Radio. Speak up and be a part of the People's Agenda. Tuesday, March 31 from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. This broadcast is brought to you by Trangback Premium and LaSalle's Employers and Partners Cooperative Credit Union.
Exciting news! The Design Studio on Nationwide 90 FM just got a whole lot bigger. Join us this and every Saturday now from 1 to 3 p.m. for an exclusive show that elevates your home, mind, and soul. Discover the latest interior design trends to create your dream sanctuary. Unlock your true potential with personal growth strategies. Nourish your body and spirit with expert wellness tips. Don't miss out on the inspiration you need to live your best life. Tune in to the Design Studio this and every Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. and take the first step towards a more fulfilling you.
Make me sweat, make me harder.
Welcome back, listeners, viewers, to Nationwide at 5, and this is the nation's business. We now turn to the matter of the situation heating up in terms of the country's petroleum sector. This as several dealers are reportedly accusing Total Energies Jamaica Limited of unfair pricing practices by offering preferential fuel rates to select operators and creating an uneven playing field in the market. It's further understood that Total Energies terminated 2 of the dealers' contracts after complaints were made to the Energy Ministry. Nationwide News spoke with one of the dealers who's currently under contract with Total Energies. The dealer, who requested anonymity out of fear of his contract being terminated, outlined a litany of what he says are unfair business practices by the fuel supply company. The dealer says the company, which has been operating as a fuel supplier in Jamaica for 20 years, has taken a turn for the worse under the new leadership of its managing director, Vincent Daniel. The dealer says, among other things, Total Energy has increased the rents and franchise fees significantly. And to discuss this further, we are joined by the JRGA's president, Philip Chong. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
So it's good to hear from you. Please give us an understanding of how serious this situation is. How serious are these concerns raised by some of the dealers regarding the Total Energy situation, and have they brought this directly to you as the president of the JRGA?
I'll answer the last question first. Yes, they have brought their concerns to me, to the association. And the seriousness of it is as serious as the Gulf War.
Understood. And please explain to us the situation. Have you had an opportunity to assess the allegations of their credibility?
Yes, we have, and they are credible. Our members, the concerns that they've voiced, some of them are aged, and what is happening now, it seems as though Total Energies is getting very aggressive in terms of looking to control the retail sector rather than just controlling their own marketing sector.
Please go into a little bit more detail. What does that mean exactly? Because for those of us who don't understand the intricacies of the petroleum and gas retail sector.
Okay, well, the marketing companies are wholesalers. They own and have contractual arrangements with retailers who operate the service stations and offer their service to the consumer. A lot of us are claiming that we are no longer viable within the business sector. This is a situation that has been structured for quite a long time based upon the owner's contracts that we are faced with. Now, one can say that, yes, you sign a contract, right? But you sign a contract in good faith. And it seems to me that of recent, that good faith has been eroded. Now, you have, of recent times, Total Energies have been pricing their product to selective stations. I can't say it's prejudice because I don't know, but they are setting prices at one station and not offering the same prices at another station. And when I say another station, another of their own station, which is just a stone throw away. Within the same, less than a quarter mile from each other. This was brought to our attention, and it is an unfair practice. We've carried it to the ministry to have a look at it, and they agree that the practice is unfair.
But if you brought it to the minister and the ministry in terms of, I suppose you could call it a mediation of sorts, then was any directive or otherwise some kind of instruction given to Total Energies if the concern was considered as unfair and substantiated?
Yes, categorically I was telling you yes. Right? And it is an ongoing, not discussion, but it's an ongoing situation where the government including the Fair Trading Commission, is having an in-depth look at it to come up with a solution, and a directive was given. And I would have imagined that if Total Energies or the new management in Total Energies had any respect for Jamaica, they would have held their hands. But it does not seem so.
And in the circumstances of these two dealers, did Total Energies provide a reason behind the termination of their contracts?
In the first instance, and I will cite the location at Harborview, where the dealer that they said that they're not renewing his contract was not given a reason, but for the same simplicity that they said they want one dealer to operate both sites. Now, just to put it in a geographical situation, that the stations are back to back. One is on the main, one is in the plaza, if you know Harborview roundabout. Right? And they offer the price to the one inside the one inside the market or the plaza at such a price that that dealer is able to retail that gas at a price lower than what the station, Mr. Marley station on the street, is purchasing the gas from the same Martin company. Now, we take exception to that because obviously it is prejudicial. You know, I can't think of another word.
And in bringing this matter to Total Energies, what has been the response to the JRGA?
Well, they don't care.
Please, I can't imagine they simply just said we don't care. I'm sure they provide at least some evidence to suggest that they're not doing anything wrong.
They're treating us with impunity. They're saying it's a free market. They can do whatever they want to do.
I see. So what further expectations?
I don't know how free a market can be, because Jamaica is not a free place.
I understand, but please, what further expectations do you have in terms of the intervention of the energy minister and the regulators? How do you see this playing out?
Well, I do see some regulations being imposed, and as it relates to fair trade, some sanctions would have to take place. Because you cannot be selling one commodity, right, for one price, and to your own dealer looking to reduce his viability of business to be selling twice the price up the road. That don't make any sense.
Understood. I'm sure, Mr. Chong, we'll be hearing more about this in the coming days and weeks, because it certainly seems like, based on what you've said here, that there is a matter to be dealt with. And we did reach out to Total Energies for a comment on Wednesday of this week, and we were told the message would be passed on. However, on Thursday, we were further advised the relevant individual had been briefed, but after several hours, no response was received. And even today, we also reached out again, and we received no response. So clearly there are some questions that Total Energies has to answer, and we will keep reaching out to them in order to get those answers, if at all possible. But certainly there will be further developments in this matter. Mr. Chong, thank you for joining us this evening.
You're more than welcome, sir.
That is the end of Nation's Business. Listeners, please stay in tune for Around the World.
Charles O'Connor Consulting Network, COCN, is a financial reporting firm that delivers accounting and compliance services on time. Call us today at 876-908-0486-7. Email us at clientservices@cocnjamaica.com or visit our website at www.cocnjamaica.com. cocnjamaica.com. COCN, driven by international accounting standards, modern technology, and integrity.
For all your electrical needs, visit ABC Electrical Sales. They stock a wide variety of electrical supplies, including plugs, switches, panel boards, and conduits, plus energy-saving fixtures. ABC Electrical Sales stocks brands like GE, Siemens, Philips, Cutler Hammer, and Allen Bradley. They also offer free island-wide delivery just to suit your needs. Visit them at Shop 8, Hagley Park Plaza, Kingston 10, or call 876-754-3714-5 or 876-754-3825-8. ABC Electrical Sales, for a better choice in the electrical business.
1, 2, 3, boom. Green light.
You mean red lights?
Green light. Everything easy and instant when you click the chatbot icon on the CNWJ Credit Union webpage.
So what?
Just become a member of CNWJ Credit Union. You can save, make deposits, and get loans. Speaking of loans, once you become a member, you can instantly apply for a loan right there online and have the cash in your hand within 24 hours.
Where chatbot?
No, chatbot.
Conditions apply. CNWJ Credit Union. Discover the benefits of belonging.
That's right, listeners. It's time to go around the world, and we are going to Spain this time, where a Spanish woman who has conducted a long legal battle with her father for the right to end her life died by euthanasia on Thursday. Barcelona resident Noelia Castillo was left paraplegic due to injuries suffered when she tried to take her own life in 2022. The Catalan government granted her the right to assisted dying in the summer of 2024. But the process was suspended at the last moment after legal objections raised by her father. With the backing of the conservative campaign group Christian Lawyers, that's Abogados Cristianos, he argued his daughter suffered from a personality disorder which affected her judgment. Speaking to Spanish TV earlier this week, Castillo said her father had tried to legally block her decision to die with dignity. She said, "He hasn't respected my decision and never will." She also recounted her difficult childhood, much of it spent in care homes. Castillo said she was first sexually assaulted by her ex-boyfriend of 4 years after she had taken sleeping pills to help her sleep, and said she was also assaulted on another occasion by several men in a nightclub. The 25-year-old said she had always felt alone and never had doubts that she wanted to go ahead with the decision to die by euthanasia. More in this report from France 24 English.
Her case sparked intense debate in Spain, especially after a TV interview aired where she recounted a turbulent home life and 3 episodes of sexual abuse. Catalonia's government approved her request for assisted dying in the summer of 2024, but it was halted at the last minute after her father, backed by the conservative group Christian Lawyers, launched a legal challenge.
They had found a small legal loophole, so they appealed. Then there was another and another and another and another. But from a human perspective, it was indecent.
The challenge delayed her death for nearly 2 years, moving through 5 levels of court before the European Court of Human Rights ruled in Castillo's favour. But on the day of her death, her case was still being debated.
Today in Spain, a 25-year-old girl is to be executed thanks to laws you voted for.
You have no right to question Noelia's decision. You have already sadistically prolonged her suffering for 2 years with endless appeals, all of which have been rejected.
Castillo's case has become a defining test of Spain's right to die law and the limits of who gets to decide.
Listeners, this is a difficult one for me. This is a difficult one in general. I mean, the matters of what someone can legally do in terms of their freedom of expression, I don't know where we set those limits, but the ability to essentially decide when you want to end your life for whatever reason, I don't know if I have a position on it. It just doesn't sit well with me that is a decision that can be handed down essentially by any court or justice system to essentially suggest that, yes, you as an individual can just decide that you must. As I said, listen, this one is just very difficult for me to even wrap my mind around, especially in this case of Noelia Castillo, because it goes well beyond just a young lady making such a difficult decision because of her current health circumstances, but it goes beyond how the system, as in the system of governance, her family structure, let her down throughout her life, that led her first in the instant case to try and commit suicide, and now in a situation where in the failure of doing that, she ended up in a circumstances where she felt that her life no longer had enough meaning to continue. And that to me is not just a matter of a moral question of whether one has the right to make that decision to terminate their life, but just where the system failed on so many regards in terms of her seeking justice and her finding a place in the world. The fact that she had to go through not one but numerous sexual assaults alone suggests the mind space that she must have been left in. I don't know to what extent that she got justice for either of those situations, but it really does leave a lot to be desired when at the end of the day, the ultimate decision in terms of how to essentially grant her solace or justice or peace is that her life must come to an end. I don't know, I cannot see us even fathoming such a legal discourse in Jamaica. I know there are many who want to have that kind of discourse here in Jamaica in terms of other similar scenarios, but it really does, in my opinion, test the limits of what it means to be a free individual and the matter of freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Where is the limit in terms of the state's ability to curtail that right? Does it come at the point where, in my opinion, you are a threat to yourself, and in the suggestion as to what is considered an allowable quality of life that you can live, and at one point should you be allowed to say that this is not a quality of life that I wish to live? Quite a few discussions to be had here, listeners. I don't know what's the right way to answer many of the questions on this. It's definitely something that I'm going to have to think about, because I think this case has really brought home to me that when we use terms such as you have freedom of expression, freedom of choice, I fall back into a bit of a conservative mindset that I've never considered myself to hold, that maybe there really should be limits, and I mean significant limits as to what freedoms you're allowed. And that's coming from someone who genuinely believes that the freedom of expression should be held to the utmost as long as you do not represent a danger to someone else. But in the circumstances where someone is in a situation where they consider self-harm or consider ending their own life, I don't know if I support that freedom. And I say that on the basis because, to me, I really question the mindset. I think a psychologist would have to talk to me about this. I question the mindset of someone who is willing to sacrifice their life in such a manner. I don't know what drives that kind of decision, what puts somebody in that mindset. But when you're put in that mindset, can it be considered that you are in the frame of mind to make such a significant and ultimate decision? And I suppose that's the catch-22 about something like this. When someone suggests that they are going to commit suicide, you question their mental faculties. And I suppose when it comes to these right to euthanasia laws, they suggest that the person has to be in the right frame of mind to make such a decision. But could you ever be considered to be in that right frame of mind to make such a decision? And really, listeners, this is definitely one that has me even tongue-tied here. It's quite a thing, but that's where we have to leave it this evening. Not to leave it on such a cliffhanger, but that is where we have to leave it. So thanks to our super producer Dana Davey, our technical operator Andrew the Glenn Boogs Anderson, all my compatriots and friends in the news and production department, led by the very capable Cara Powell. I'm Siobhan Campbell. Thank you for joining me this evening. And to anyone listening, if you are in a space where you feel isolated, alone, depressed, and you think that the right option is self-harm, please reach out to anybody. Reach out. Try to reach out to someone in order to deal with that. It's not a situation you want to find anyone in, and I think the individuals around you would not want to hear that it had come to such a ultimate price. But thank you for joining us. Please stay tuned. It's the comment section next with Mahiri Stewart and Shalois Michael.
From the biggest trucks, the